Sister Zahro.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Mr. And also we check attendance for Mr. Afian Khalil Ash'ari.
Yeah,
You're
I'm
here?
here. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. So we're going to waiting for Mr. Muhammad Abradares. After that, we can start our session.
Okay. So start from me ya. Wait, let me share.
Or Mr. Zakirman first, Mr. Abrar, sorry.
Oh,
Yes.
I
Okay.
got news from Mr. Zakirman.
Okay.
Mr. Zakirman can suddenly can attend this
Oh, I see.
event because he needs to take his mother to hospital to operate something.
Hospital. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much for the information, Mr. Abradares.
Sure.
Maybe we can start the the session, and I will open this forum first. So, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Yes, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Breakout Room 1 parallel session in today's agenda, International Webinar on Islamic Economics and Policy, hosted by Tazkiyah University and INSEF Malaysia. So we're going to listen the paper presentations from the postgraduate student of the Master of Islamic Economic Study Program, Tazkiyah University. And let me introduce myself first. My name is Az-Zahra Zahira, and you can call me Zahra, and I'm your moderator for this session. And first, I would like to greet our reviewer today, Associate Professor Anita Priyantina, MEC, PhD, as a head of Islamic Economics Department, Tazkiyah University, and also Ms. Anita is completing her doctoral degree at University Science Islam Malaysia, USIM. Assalamualaikum, Ms. Anita.
Waalaikumsalam, Kak Zahra. How are you?
MashaAllah, Alhamdulillah. It's nice to see you again, Ms. Anita, especially in Tazkiyah's forum. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for your time. And as we know, everyone, as Ms. Rizwalandari told us before, that Dr. Nur Huda should have been able to join us today because of her son is sick, so she cannot be present with us here. And we have Ms. Anita as our reviewer for today. And also, I would like to greet the participant, the presenter for today's agenda, the postgraduate student of the Master of Islamic Economic Study Program, Faculty of Islamic Economic and Business, Tazkiyah University, and also greet all the participants, the audience for this breakout room 1. And there are 4 presenters for today, actually, but Mr. Zakirman and also Mr. Sudarman cannot attend this forum because of his external agenda. So we're going to have 2 presenters for today, is Mr. Muhammad Abradares and Mr. Afian Khalil Ash'ari. Thank you for coming. Thank you for your time. And before we start for the presentation today, let me explain about the mechanism for this session. So first, I will invite each presenter to present their research paper. Each presenter will be given 10 minutes to present their paper, and I will remind you when there is only 1 minute left on commenter column. And the order for presentation is first Mr. Muhammad Abradares, and then followed by Mr. Afian Khalil Ash'ari. And after listening to 2 presentations, we will move on to the constructive academic critique, advice, and scholarly evaluation session for each presented paper by Ms. Anita Priyantina, PhD. And after that, we are going to the question and answer session. It's open floor discussion from audience. So please be prepared to give the question. You can use the raise hand feature or drop the question in the comment column. And the last session is documentation. And after that, all audience can return to the main room for closing ceremony. Yes, I think it's clear for the mechanism for this agenda. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to the first presenter. We invite Mr. Muhammad Abrar Dares with the title of the paper is Welfare State in Islam, Comparing the Scandinavian Welfare State and the Concept of Baitul Mal, a case study of fiscal policy in Indonesia. So, Mr. Muhammad Abrar Dares, time is yours.
Thank you, Sister Zahra, for the time. Let me share first. Is my presentation already there?
Yes, Mr.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Because this is still morning, so good morning to everyone. Good morning to our reviewer, Associate Prof. Anita. Good morning to our lecturer, Dr. Riz. Good morning to our moderator, Sister Zahro, and good morning, brother and sister. So, oh, sorry. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let me introduce myself. My name is Muhammad Abradares, and in this presentation, I will discuss the concept of the welfare state in Islam. Specifically, I will compare the welfare system in Scandinavian countries with the concept of Baitul Mal in Islam. I will also use Indonesia fiscal policy as a case study to show how the principle of Baitul Mal can be applied in the modern era. Okay. We move to issue in background. At the beginning of this presentation, I would like to raise a question. Are the welfare state policies of the Scandinavian countries and the concept of Baitul Mal are two completely different systems, or are they simply different paths to pursue the same goal? The main issue discussed here is global inequality. Economic inequality remains one of the world's major unresolved challenge. However, both the Scandinavian welfare model and the concept of Baitul Mal offer serious approach to addressing this problem. Now, let us move to the Indonesian context. Indonesia has the largest Muslim population in the world. The country has also implemented several fiscal policy aimed at improving public welfare and quality of life. These programs have reached around million of people and have successfully mobilized funds amounting to tens of trillions of rupiah. The next issue is related to the literacy and understanding of Baitul Mal itself. Today, Baitul Mal is often viewed only from a normative perspective and is generally considered a historical concept. As a result, there is still limited literature that directly explains how modern fiscal policy can be aligned with the principle of Baitul Mal. Okay, we move to theoretical framework. Regarding the theoretical framework, the first theory I use is Musgrave fiscal theory. Musgrave identified three main functions of the state. First is distribution, second is allocation, and third is stabilization. In this study, the focus is on the distribution function, which emphasizes the state responsibility to correct that arise from market mechanism. The second theory is distributive justice from a comparative perspective. According to John Rawls, inequality in society can only be justified if it benefits the least advantaged members of society. This principle indirectly serves as one of the foundation of the welfare system in Scandinavian countries. Islam offers a similar perspective. The Quran explicitly discourages the concentration of wealth in the hands of a small group of people. Islam also emphasizes that wealth does not absolutely belong to any individual, but rather is a trust entrusted by Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. And the last theory or the third theory highlight the similarity between two parallel concepts. First is the commodification in Western welfare theory, and second is daruriyat within the framework of Maqasid Syariah. Esping Anderson defines the commodification as the ability of individuals to maintain a decent standard of living without being fully dependent on the market. In Islamic economics, daruriyat refers to the essential needs that must be fulfilled to ensure a dignified life, namely the protection of religion, life, intellect, lineage, and wealth. So we called it usually as a Maqasid Syariah. Therefore, both concepts share the view that meeting basic human needs is an absolute right that should be protected from market exploitation. So we're gonna discuss about the Scandinavian welfare state. The data on this slide show a very clear picture. Denmark, Sweden, and Norway maintain tax to GDP ratio of around 40 to 45%. This is significantly higher than the other OECD countries that average of 33% and almost twice the level of the United States, which stand only at 25.6%. This strong fiscal capacity, supported by high tax revenue, allow this country to provide universal healthcare, free education, unemployment benefits, and comprehensive pension system for all of their citizens. The results can be seen empirically through their Gini coefficient, which constantly range between 0.26 and 0.29. This makes the Scandinavian countries some of the most equal societies in the world, with relatively low level of income inequality. However, this achievement comes with an important note. This model works effectively only when it is supported by strong state institutions and a high level of public trust in government. For developing countries like us, it is very difficult to directly replicate this model without carefully considering their own social and institutional condition. So, next we're gonna talk about Baitul Mal architecture. Baitul Mal, which literally means the house of wealth, was the first public financial institution in Islamic history. It was established in Madinah during the time of Prophet Muhammad SAW and later evolved into a more organized system under Khalifah Umar bin Khattab. Baitul Mal relied on several financial instruments such as zakat, with the function as a direct redistribution tool for the 8 eligible group of beneficiaries. Next, Kharaj or land tax, which is used to fund public infrastructure. Jizya ensure protection and social service for non-Muslim citizens. Wakaf enable individual dedicate their asset permanently for public benefit. Finally, Gonimah and Fa'i is for war, spoil, and income without combat. And state revenue derived from specific source according to the teaching of the Quran. Okay, so what actually we gonna talk about the two concept. So we're gonna compare this two concept. When we place these two model within a comparative framework across 7 dimensions, we find that they agree on the most fundamental point. They share the same goal. Both systems aim to ensure that every member of society has access to basic needs and is protected from socio-economic risks. The difference lies in how they achieve this goal. The Scandinavian model is built upon a secular social contract, where citizens collectively agree to pool resources and share risk together. In contrast, Baitul Mal is based on spiritual value and obligation, where the concern for others stems from the relationship between humans, Allah, and fellow human beings, Hablum minallah and Hablum minanas. One important difference that deserves special attention is the issue of universality versus targeted beneficiaries. The Scandinavian model is universal things, meaning that every citizen is entitled to the same service regardless of their economic condition. But in the other hands, Baitul Mal, particularly through the zakat component, adopts a more targeted approach that prioritizes the most vulnerable group. Both approaches have their own strength. Universality help ensure that no one is left uncovered, while a targeted approach ensure that limited resource that we have reach those who need them at the most. So, what is about Baitul Mal map to Indonesian policy? Indonesia, through its current fiscal policy, has already implemented many of the functions of Baitul Mal through its existing social protection program. Looking at the evidence, we have Basnas and LAS perform the function of zakat on a national scale. Meanwhile, Badan Wakaf Indonesia and the Cash Wakaf Linked Sukuk atau CWLS have brought the concept of wakaf into the modern financial system. The National Health Insecure Program or JKN administered by BPJS Kesehatan covers around 98% of Indonesian population and provide access to healthcare service. In education, programs such as the Smart Indonesia Program (PIP) and the Smart Indonesia Card (KIP) and the LPDP Scholarship Program protect the right to the education, which correspondent to Makosid Syariah that lead us to principle of preserving intellect. The conclusion from this mapping is very important. The concept of Baitul Mal, which may still seem abstract to many people, has actually been translated into fiscal policies that are already being implemented by the Indonesian government. In other words, many of the functions of Baitul Mal are already in place. What is needed now is a stronger commitment and better optimization of the existing system so that it can work more optimal and effective. So the analysis for recommendation or policy recommendation at this presentation is, although all of these instruments already exist, the data show that there is still much greater potential to be unlocked. The annual potential of zakat and kas wakaf in Indonesia is estimated to exceed around 580 trillion rupiah. However, the actual amount collected in 2023 was only around 34.5 trillion rupiah. This means that about around 93% of the potential remains untapped every year. There are three main issues behind this gap. First, many Muslims are aware of their obligation to pay zakat, but they do not constantly fulfill it through formal institution. This is reflected in the Indonesian Zakat Literacy Index, which stands at 70.67%. While is this relatively high figure, it has not yet translated into concrete action. Second, many potential muzaki still have limited trust in zakat institution and are uncertain whether their contribution will be managed transparently and accountability. Third, with more than 500 zakat organizations operating across Indonesia, there are cases of duplication and inefficiency in both fund collection and distribution. So, the recommendation, if the government can address this underlying issue, the realization rate could move much closer to its actual potential. This paper proposed three policy recommendations. First, the government should recognize formally paid zakat as a full deduction from personal income tax. This would provide a real incentive for muzaki to channel their zakat through official institution. Second, the cash wakafling sukuk model should be expanded to finance social infrastructure such as hospital, school, and affordable housing, thereby reducing pressure on the state budget or APBN. Third, the beneficiary database of Basnas should be integrated with the integrated social welfare database managed by our Ministry of Social Affairs. This would have prevent overlapping assistance program and improve the accuracy of social targeting. So, what the conclusion? The conclusion is, first, at the conceptual level, the Scandinavian welfare state and Baitul Mal share the same normative mission. What the mission is to organize the redistribution of wealth for the well-being of all members of society. Although they are rooted in different philosophy, both seek to address the same issue. Second, at the policy level, Indonesia has already operationalized many of the functions of Baitul Mal through existing programs. These include the National Health Insurance Program (JKN) for healthcare, the Family Hope Program (PKH), and the Smart Indonesia Program (PIP) for poverty alleviation and education, Basnas for zakat management, and Badan Wakaf Indonesia for wakaf development. Third, or the last, the biggest challenge lies at the practical level. In theory, Indonesia already has policies that can improve public welfare. However, in practice, there is still a significant gap between the existing potential and what is actually achieved. Bridging this gap requires stronger institutional accountability as well as better integration between regulation and government policy. That concludes my presentation. I hope the ideas and explanation I have shared today are clear and easy to understand. I also hope that recommendation I also hope that the recommendation discussed in this presentation can be further developed and considered by policymakers in the future. Thank you for attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Back to you.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi
Dr. Zafar.
wabarakatuh. Thank you, Brother Abradares, for the presentation. It's very interesting to listening, yeah. The topic, how you compare the Scandinavian welfare state and concept of Baitul Mal in this your paper, and also we are going to the next presenter. So for Mr. Afian Khalil Ash'ari, your the title of your paper is Hybrid Econometrics, Machine Learning Evidence on Monetary Policy Transmission through the Islamic Financial Channel following the government mandated merger into Bank Syariah Indonesia. So, Mr. Afian Khalil Ash'ari, time is yours.
Okay, thank you. Is my voice clear and my screen is show?
Clear.
Okay. Okay,
The
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
slide is still loading.
Okay, wait.
Okay.
It's clear? Okay. Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, Prof. Anita and distinguished guests. My name is Safin Al-Ashari. Today, I will present my study titled about hybrid econometric machine learning evidence on monetary policy transmission through the Islamic financing channel. At this study, I focusing on the post-based emerger period of 2021 to 2025. Okay, let's begin with the context itself. So in February 2021, a state affirmative policy mandated the BSE merger, creating an instant structural shock. And also, basically, the mandate itself is a national strategic project serving as a state affirmative policy. And BSE merger is, for the context, itself is, like the administrative itself is the year of the intervention of the political country to the industry to boost the Sharia finance industry, but the fact also the merger created instant structural shock with BSE commanding for more than 40% of the national Islamic banking asset, and also the basis liquidity management de facto dictate the aggregate behavior of the entire national Islamic banking industry itself. So for this research, our central research question is, how does this structural policy intervention affect the Islamic monetary transmission mechanism, and what are its implications for Maqasid Sharia? To answer this, basically, I examined the post-based Islamic financing growth using a novel hybrid VSCM and random forest approach, which theoretically we expect that this massive aggregation of liquidity will immunize the Islamic financing channel against the conventional interest rate shock. Okay, for the theory itself, actually for the foundation, we built upon the credit channel theory by Bernard and Blaine, where the Islamic version operates by adjusting profit sharing ratio and financing margin instead of interest rate. While, as you can see, the previous study are predominantly use the merger dataset as I proposed for the at the mapping of the research itself, that from Wulandari 2012 and also Askaria, Zulkifli Sukmana, Fikri, and also Anwar, they are focusing on the pre-BSE merger and also but focus on the linear econometrics for the research. And also there is a one that actually I take as an inspiration from C. Regler et al. 2026. For they are actually using the big data analyzing such as random forest, supervised learning, machine learning into econometric landscape, but the data itself is using the pre-based merger, and for this merger I specific using the post-based merger to capture what kind of the condition of the economy based on empirical data that actually post-based merger itself. Okay, for our methodology, actually we observe 43 months of data from February 2021 and June 2025. We use the BI rate and FASBIS as a monetary instrument, and also for the macroeconomic contour, we use inflation, GDP, and also exchange rate. But for the banking response, we use the NPF and EFGRV, or Islamic financing growth, which is treated as independent variables for this dependent variable of this research. And also for the method itself, as I mentioned that I'm using VICM to capture a structural causality and random forest algorithm to extract nonlinear pattern. So basically, this is linear and nonlinear pattern as I use for the to capture what kind of the not just causality, but also the to know that what kind of the non-linear feature importance for the extraction itself. And as for disclaimer, the use of random forest is purely for non-linear feature importance extraction via Gini MDI, not as a forecasting tool itself, as like the random forest used for the other study. For the result itself, it's quite interesting because there is a raw aggregate. The raw aggregate data reveals that actually the merger itself is show the macrostructural phenomena. Look at the descriptive statistic that actually I serve. At least there are three macrostructural phenomena defined this observation window. The first is we observe an extreme financing growth spike in 2022, which was a finding base effect anomaly driven by the affirmative policy and also the BSE merger before returning to a stable around 10% equilibrium. Meanwhile, and also for the second one is the systemic risk improve, as you can see as the NPF or non-performing finance dropped for 32.2% to roughly to 21%. This is a sign that actually by institutional and by the industry itself is improved for the systemic review for the systemic risk. And also then the aggressive monetary tightening pushed the benchmark rate from 3.5 to 6.25 over the period, compelling the parallel fast-based adjustment that actually, you can see that the central bank is over the time is tightening the benchmark rate for the BI rate itself. Okay, for the result itself, moving to our VSCM result on stationarity, actually I do test about the DF test, confirm that fast-based BI rate, Islamic financing growth, NPF, inflation are on integration order 1, or the first derivative of the mathematical math. Also, for the GDP and exchange rate are integration 0, or justifying the block exogenity treatment itself. For the second test, I do test a Johansson test, identify 3 co-integrating factor at the 5 significance level under both Chess, Max, and Eigen. Actually, this is confirming that there is a valid long-run relationship and also the test is basically validating the use of VSCM framework itself. For the Lagrange criteria, unanimously select 4, consistent with the expected 4-month monetary transmission delay in a small open economy, consistent with the result with Zulkifli and Sukmana in 2026. Importantly, the Granger causality test established a linear causality for both the BE rate and also the NPF on financing growth, and it confirms the decoupling paradox that post-merger Islam remain highly anchored on the conventional instead of the Sharia instrument or the fast-based. Beside the asset quality risk, NPF also retain the primary traction. Okay. Okay, this is the result of the ERF, impulse response ERF analysis, the dynamic shock propagation. So as you can see for the BI rate shock, we can see that when the month 0 of the BI, when the first time BI tightening the shock for the internal industry of the BUS, Bank Umum Syariah, it's not actually not that contraction, but there is a gradual contraction effect that the lag is need 4 until 5 months transmission lag for the Islamic financing channel and also for the NPF shock. But difference from the NPF shock, it's the result when the BI actually when the BI tightening the shock, there is a fastest and the strongest response that the response is very very instant to the Islamic financing growth itself. In contrast, so this contrast is critical that are confirmed that Islamic banks are far more sensitive to asset quality deterioration than to monetary policy signals. Also, for the second one is we also uncover the ambivalence of the fast-based. There are 2 pace in the fast-based role itself. in the phase one or the soft fund, FASBs act as intended providing liquidity support, but when the time has come and after the monthly, the medium run, the elevated FASBs balance a trigger structural crowding out effect, which mean Islamic banks prefer to park the excess fund in this safe high yield standing facility rather than deploying them into productive real sector. Also, for the result of the forest error variance decomposition or VAVD reveals a systemic shift into structural dominance. In the short run, in the monthly, actually, as you can see that in the monthly, as you can see that the NPF is contribute more to the Islamic financing growth, but it's safe from the monthly to, as you can see, for the month end that in inflation and GDP or the macro economic condition is what is it? It's more than the FASBs and also the BI rate, which mean that the institutional supply side intervention consolidation cannot override the macroeconomic fundamentals. So basically, the institutional intervention like BI rate is quite important for the short and medium run, but the structural implication is also to be more to be more checked to and to be more focused on the long run itself. And this is the result that actually I'm using the random forest. After deploy a random forest model strictly for nonlinear pattern recognition, this is an exploratory nonlinear cross-validation tool. The model is not deployed for forecasting, and also this is acknowledging that it's with predictive power to do the small sample size, which trained for 41 observation with like 4 predictors, and interestingly is like the BI rate is contribute more on the top, but the FASBs itself is 21 to 21.8%. That this insight show that FASBs actually has a strong non-linear relevance for the Islamic financing channel, despite its invisibility in the linear VACM model itself.
Sorry, Mr. Afian, your time is out.
Okay. Okay, this is the conclusion. Actually, for the empirical reality, maybe as you can see that despite the largest state-led Islamic banking merger in Indonesian history, basically the Islamic finance channel remains structurally anchored to conventional monetary signal. And also for the second finding is, like the ERF show the crowding out effect, which mean achieving to Makoshit Sharia mandate require a deep fiscal monetary coordination, not just a banking consolidation itself. For the recommendation, I also propose that redesign FASBs as a share incentive, and also for the second one is strengthen monetary macroprudential. The third is build Islamic bank analytical capacity, and also for the fourth is embed the financing into national development architecture or PGMN. And also the study acknowledge such as the boundary, especially in the temporal constraint for the data set itself, and also the institutional bias for the study. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Brother Afir Khalil Ash'ari, for the presentation. It's very interesting. You talk about the monetary policy transmission, and also the recommendation is to activating a Makosit alignment transmission channel that mutually reinforcing interventions. MashaAllah, thank you so much for 2 presenters today. And we're going to next session is for Miss Anita Priyantina, PhD, to review, to give a critic or to give an advice to our 2 presenters. So we have 20 minutes for you, Miss Anita. So you can give a question 2 for the presenters. So time is yours, Miss Anita.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Okay, I can hear you, Miss. Okay.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me, even though maybe given a very short notice before the event started. And I think because I haven't read the full draft of your article, so maybe what I can do is to clarify some of the points that you have both presented today from the slide that you have just prepared just now. Can I have the slide from Pak Abrar again, please? Pak Abrar, can you please show your slide again?
Sure. Wait.
Okay. So,
Here.
okay, thank you, Pak Abrar. So your title is Welfare State Islam, Comparing the Scandinavian Welfare State and the Concept of Baitul Mal, a case study of fiscal policy in Indonesia. I think in terms of content, actually what you presented was intriguing. It was interesting, and there are a lot of contents that are actually insightful, but maybe I will have to clarify, and also I will have to give some insight from research perspective and from do you plan to publish this article, Pak Abrar?
Not yet, Miss.
Not
I
yet.
just yeah.
Okay, but still, I will just give both of you maybe how to say insights on how ready published article should be. Okay, so first thing first is on the title. So comparing the title and your content and also your conclusion, yeah, I think what you need is to scrutinize or focusing on what your research questions are. So if I ask your research questions, Pak Abrar, what are your research questions actually?
My research question is actually what is the purpose gitu? What is the purpose of or the same meaning with the policy in Scandinavian state and the Baitul Mal concept in the last era. So I go with that question, and now I discover more about that, and takes me to this presentation, Miss Anita.
If I ask about methodology, what methodology did you use actually? I mean, to answer your
Okay.
research problems.
The methodology that I use is what I do some what laboratory review from apa from what from many literature, so I compile that one to one, so so it's a qualitative, yes, so I yeah, that's it. That's the only I do, Miss.
Okay, so I think I will go one by one. Yeah, actually, what you are talking, what you are trying to share in your presentations, there are a lot of important things there. But if I have to say, what you talk here can be, how to say, it can be divided into several articles. So what you did can be not really perfect. I mean, I'm not trying to say perfected, but if we are talking from a journal article perspective, methodology is a must, and whether there's a synchronize between the title, the introductions, the literature review, the previous study that you use, especially the methodology that you use for this paper is also, I mean, you can do many things from here. So what I can suggest to improve your paper and to make it more publish ready, yeah, is first thing first is that I think actually you can divide what you are trying to do. Comparing between the Scandinavian welfare state and comparing the concept of Baitul Mal is one thing. Okay, and then observing or analyzing whether the fiscal policy happening in Indonesia actually meeting the Maqasid Syariah criteria is also the other thing. Okay, so in terms of methodology, when you say that I'm doing qualitative study, okay, qualitative study has its own data collections, data analysis, and still, even though you are doing qualitative study, I'm not saying that qualitative is easier compared to quantitative study. Both have their own dynamics, both have their own function, and have their own uniqueness. Yeah. If you want to say that, okay, I'm doing a qualitative study, what do you do? If you said, I'm doing library study, okay, library study, which documents are you studying? Okay, is it journal articles, or is it historical, I don't know, maybe records, for example? Because Baitul Mal also, we need to define which Baitul Mal that you are referring to. Is it Baitul Mal in the Prophet's era, for example? Is it Baitul Mal in the Caliphate of Umayyah era, or is it in the Abbasid period? Which one? You need to define clearly which Baitul Mal that you refer to in this study, in your study. And also when you compare the Scandinavian welfare state, okay, Scandinavian welfare state, there are three countries, right? Do they really have similar things? They really have the same policy? Do they really have exact same systems? Yeah, this is also important. Yeah, so if you decide, okay, I'm doing library study, what you need to do next is that you have to define what library study that you do. Is that you study from the record, the historical record, or maybe you do systematic literature review. Systematic literature review, then you will have to also decide which the base that you are going to use, because these instruments, these research instruments, we need to really define in the beginning so we can have a clear conclusions at the end. Okay, so Barbara, what you did is amazing. I have so many things and I learned things from you as well, but I think maybe you can separate some things. You can divide what you want to do with your paper. And to me, actually, from the most contents, even though maybe I did not read your full paper, what I did was just listening to your presentations and also reading from your slides, yeah, which of course, I mean, a slide is not as comprehensive as paper, right? But from the slides that you share with us, mostly what you trying to do with this paper is actually analyzing whether what we have currently in Indonesia have met some maqasid things. So whether we have already completed the Hifzul Mal, whether we have already completed Hifzul Nasal, Hifzul Aql, Hifzul Din, and Hifzul Nafas. I think maybe this is the focus of your study. If it is your focus of this paper, then what you need to do is restraining yourself from comparing the Scandinavian welfare state and from the Baitul Mal, but maybe from the beginning, you have to speak about Maqasid Sharia. Because Maqasid Sharia itself, when it comes to the research instruments, there are already some indicators that some scholars have already developed. Like we have Ibn Ashur, for example, and we have more. Yeah, I think in our class we discussed that there are more criteria other than five maqasid. We now have another maqasid which is Hifzul Bi'ah, for example. You did not incorporate that into your study, so maybe what you did was referring to Ibn Ashur. But then from that, you need to also see and you need to also make it in detail, like, okay, uh, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to see how far the achievement of Maqasid Sharia from, for example, this year or this presidential era, for example. Yeah, then that will give you limited scope but more focus. Okay, so then, for example, from that, okay, from this period, we have already completed the Hifzul Mal, for example, by doing some programs from the government, as you mentioned just now. But then, what would you like to analyze more detailed. Overall, I think from your presentations, I learned a lot. There are things that I also see that it is interesting. But if you want to make it a publish-able article, so maybe you need to give some more details to your paper. I think that's all from me, Kak Zahra. Thank you very much, Pak Abrar, and congratulations from you for your presentations.
Thank you, Miss Anita, for your honest review and kind insight. I can confirm and I feel that my presentation or my paper is still white and bold. So I will take that note from you that I must shape this paper and presentation more detailed. So it will be more the conclude or the concrete my my paper in the next time. So thank you, Miss Anita.
Thank you, Miss Anita and Mr. Abradares. And also, Miss Anita, I give you time to review the paper of Mr. Afian Khalil Ash'ari. Time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Kak Zahra. Pak Afian, could you please share again your slide with us, please? Okay. Thank you, Pak Afian. Your presentations was also amazing. I learned a lot, and maybe because again I did not read the full paper of this study, so there are many things that I need to confirm and I need to clarify. Okay, so but I think congratulations that you have prepared. To me, this is a little bit more publish ready paper, but there are things that I would like to clarify. I lost your screen, Afian. Okay. Can you please make it full screen?
Okay, is it full?
Not yet here.
Okay, wait. Okay, how about this?
Okay, now it's okay. Okay, so your title is Hybrid Econometric Machine Learning Evidence on Monetary Policy Transmissions through the Islamic Financing Channel following the government mandated merger into Bank Syariah Indonesia. Okay, so my first question is, when you say hybrid econometric, what do you mean by that?
Okay. Thank you, Miss Anita. So basically, hybrid econometric machine learning is basically for the analyzing the phenomenon, and also I'm using the econometric and machine learning as I quote from Siregar et al., which mean basically they actually propose that on econometrics study is using machine learning methods such as supervised learning and unsupervised learning. And one of the tools that use is if in econometrics there is a FAR or VSEM, something like that, but also for the machine learning using the random forest, and also there is some other tools that can use in machine learning, something like that. So basically this is the study that I'm using. I'm using the linear pattern hybrid model. Is basically I'm used to a kind of method the VSEM, sorry, I'm doing a typo in the presentation. Also the random forest. So basically my study is VSEM is to capture structural causality structural causality from the variable to the dependent variable, which is an Islamic financial growth as a dependent variable. This is, but also for the nonlinear pattern, I'm using the random forest. Why? Because I'm using to extract what kind of the basically the feature importance. So since my background is a business, basically I'm using that kind of to approach for when I decide to make the decision making, I'm using the causality for such as the statistical method in my context, but also I'm using the random forest to capture the helicopter view, something like that. So basically, I'm implement that kind of approach to this study. So I'm using the data science analytics, something like that, in econometrics. And this is as I mentioned in the presentation earlier, that the random forest is just for complementary, because I actually curious what kind of is it what is it is it useful for the context of econometrics landscape other than just business itself, something like that. As explained, yeah, basically I'm using hybrid model is for like that.
Okay, let me follow up on random forest. How did you actually do this random forest? What is the research questions that you answered by this, and how you did the random forest to answer your research questions?
Okay, so basically this is the research question that I actually propose on this question. How does the structural political intervention affect the Islamic monetary transmission mechanism, and what kind of implication for inclusive economic development based on Al-Maqasid Sharia? So basically, random forest, one of the feature that random forest propose is we know what kind of the contribution. So we on in terms of development economics, basically, may I show you the result itself? So the one of the feature that random forest is proposed is there are two there are two main, which is for the predictive modeling. But for this research is actually I'm acknowledge that since my data set is very short, very low, so the random forest for the the predictive model is not appropriate for this model. That is acknowledged as a disclaimer. But the important things that actually I'm literally intrigued to map this, because the feature importance ranking as indicative pattern. So this is basically to answer to complement, to deep dive about the insight from the VSCM model that show, oh, the VSCM model is there is a linear causality, something like that. But for the random forest itself, it showed that, when the variable is basically interact with each other, as we can see that actually FastBiz show more important. That's it. For the business context, I'm using the Gini feature importance ranking is to focus on what kind of the actionable plan insight to the research question. So basically, I'm using the research question. I'm using the Gini feature importance of the untuk memetakan, to mapping that kind of what kind of the focus actually that we can see on the result to implement, to map to create a plan based on the timeline itself. So basically, this is the priority ranking. So it is related to the question, because I'm propose what kind of the Maqasid Sharia implement based on the what is the feature. So it relate with this kind of proposed actionable insight, because I'm using redesign FastBiz as a short-term intervention. Because what? Because of the result of the FastBiz itself is among top 2 of the Gini feature importance ranking.
Okay, then how does Gini feature does the ranking. What do you mean ranking? Ranking in terms of
Okay.
what?
Okay, this is Gene feature ranking for the ranking itself. Like using the for the example itself. So the Gini factor importance ranking is basically. May I use bahasa Indonesia to explain better, Miss?
Sure.
Oke, so sebenarnya pada Gini feature important ranking itu sendiri ibaratnya adalah secara apa ya, secara pengetahuan gitu kan. Kalau misalkan kayak linear itu tuh ya seperti yang tadi sudah dijelaskan gitu ya, linear ya hanya kepada oke, ini memiliki casual interferensi gitu. Tapi untuk yang sifatnya Gini important ranking itu ibaratnya adalah kayak misalnya kayak ada yang menentukan gitu. Ini adalah secara sistematik gitu karena saya menggunakan kode random forest basically is a kode gitu yang memang sudah diuji di beberapa apa ya namanya di beberapa area lah, tapi mungkin di konteks di econometric itu masih kecil sekali gitu, masih jarang. Untuk sifatnya itu adalah penerusan dari regresi dan secara cepat gitu. Regresi kan basically hampir semua yang sifatnya modeling itu adalah regresi gitu. Nah, ini adalah pendalaman dari regresi itu sendiri secara cepat gitu kan. Nah, bayangkan ini tuh kayak seperti setiap variabel ini itu tuh random forest tuh membayangkan seperti kayak ini ada banyak ahli gitu ya, banyak ahli yang melakukan voting gitu terhadap fitur important mana yang memang sebenarnya berpengaruh terhadap apa namanya terhadap dependent variable, which mean Islamic financing growth gitu kan. Nah, dari setiap fitur ini tuh itu tuh melakukan voting yang akhirnya tuh melakukan beberapa kali gitu dalam konteks ini gitu, karena saya menggunakan Lake4 ya basically ada 6 Lake4 random forest, which mean ada 4 kayak kriteria gitu, 4 kriteria yang mana dari setiap ahli ini menentukan gitu. Nah, yang menentukannya apa aja gitu ya. Kalau misalkan BI rate terhadap apa namanya BI rate terhadap Islamic financing growth gitu ya. Kalau di VSC model itu kan lebih ke satu arah gitu ya, satu arah. Nah, kalau ini tuh gimana misalkan BI rate ternyata secara berhubungan dengan FastBiz itu seperti apa, dengan NPF itu secara ekosistem interaksi itu seperti apa. Kurang lebih seperti itu sih. Jadi ini tuh hasil dari yang memang hasil dari kodenya itu sendiri gitu, bukan dari apa namanya kayak apa namanya hasil dari ekonometriknya tuh seperti ibaratnya ini metodenya yang udah digunakan gitu Mes gitu. Jadi untuk melakukan ranking, jadi yang melakukan ranking itu adalah sistemnya. Dari sistem ini dari breakdown-nya adalah ibaratnya dari para ahli ini menilai gitu mana variabel-variabel mana yang memang sebenarnya paling berpengaruh gitu ya, dari jangka pendek, jangka panjang, jangka menengah sampai juga seterusnya menuju infinity gitu. Kalau dari model matematikanya sih ibaratnya limit menuju tak hingga gitu.
Yeah, I think because this is also the first time I heard hybrid method, hybrid model. Did you say hybrid model or hybrid? Wait, let me check your slide. Yeah,
Hybrid.
Hybrid econometrics.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is the first time I heard the word hybrid econometrics. Maybe I'm not familiar with that, but what I'm not really clear is that you haven't really defined how you did this. The second one, yeah, what you mentioned just now, the random forest regressor, because you also mentioned ada ahli yang meranking.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, who are the ahli
Oh,
here?
okay.
I mean,
Okay. Oh yeah, the ahli it means like the mathematical model. So basically, the ahli itself is basically like the analogy that I use for the context itself. But basically the model itself is like jadi ini adalah ahli matematika gitu yang menunjukkan bahwa kayak dari setiap variabel ini, dari hasil nilai-nilai yang memang sudah diberikan gitu, yang udah di training gitu kan, itu tuh hasilnya seperti apa, dan mereka tuh ibaratnya melakukan voting. Nah, melakukan votingnya ini tuh melihat dari apa ya namanya, dari ke semua efek yang memang diberikan dari setiap variabel terhadap dari independent variable ke dependent variable itself sih, Miss. I mean like kayak ahlinya itu adalah ahli sistem, jadi AI, something like AI agent that actually analyze the mathematical result of the equation that actually propose. But basically when sebagai kalau misalkan saya sendiri gitu ya, saya hanya melakukan memberikan kode melalui Python gitu karena memang sudah ada modelnya. Ya gampangnya adalah hal ini seperti yang kayak kalau kita menggunakan if use gitu kan. If use kan ada co-integration method yang kayak menggunakan IDF, menggunakan Johansson gitu kan. Nah, basically kurang lebih seperti itulah. Ahlinya itu adalah ahli-ahli yang kayak gitu Mas, sebenarnya lebih ke arah situ sih. Cuman memang dalam konteks random forest ini lebih fokus kepada matematikanya gitu, ahli matematika yang memang sudah dikodekan gitu sih.
Yeah, because I think other than regressions analysis in linear equations, we also have actually nonlinear regressions that could be actually assisted by some of the applications. Yeah, so honestly, I'm not really clear with the random result. And also here, when you mention, okay, 23.2% out of what? 21.8% out of what? Yeah, I think maybe you need some more clarifications here, and also on the method part, on how the random forest is actually been done. Yeah, and not sure whether hybrid econometrics model is actually a thing. Can we go back to your research questions, please? Okay. How does structural political interventions affect the Islamic monetary transmissions mechanism, and what are its implications for inclusive economic development based on Maqasid al-Sharia? I think given on the methodology that you use, I'm not really sure on the second part, which is what are its implications for inclusive economic development based on Maqasid al-Sharia, because we do not have any Maqasid indicator in your models, right? You do not have any proxy for that, right? Maqasid Sharia. I think if I'm trying to infer from what you're trying to do with this paper is that you try to do regressions on some of the variables, whether they have impact on the Islamic financial growth or not. Okay, the structural political interventions. Political interventions, you will need proxy for that. Yeah, maybe you try to structure it as political interventions because maybe from your perspective, BSI merger is a government setup, right? So you say that it's a political interventions. But I think in terms of econometric model, you need to define what do you mean by political intervention, because that is variable that you need to operationalize. Yeah, like why political interventions? I mean, the political itself has its um, definitions, and surely it will need its own proxy. Yeah, so I think maybe what you did is actually amazing, and I learned a lot from what you did. But I mean, in terms of whether your paper is publishable, you just need to polish here and there. Yeah, I think maybe if you did the FAR-VCM analysis, then you have already the result and things. You just need to how to say shape a bit here and shape a bit there. But I think when you mention structural political interventions, it's quite a big term. Yeah, so you will need to clarify that. Okay, and then implications for inclusive economic development based on Maqasid al-Sharia. You need to also clarify because I haven't found any proxy related to that. And looking at what you did by analyzing using FAR-VCM and also random forest, other than what you need to do next is, I think you need to clarify and define more what you actually means by this random forest. Because looking at your title, you mentioned machine learning. If you mean this machine learning as apps that helps you to run the data, you need to also check, because I think nowadays people use machine learning as an apps to do or to construct any trends from the database of data or database of literatures, and it has its own, of course, system. But you need to see whether what you do is actually the same thing. Yeah, so hybrid econometric model is to me is a big thing. But I mean, if it is clarified, then it's okay. I think the most that I have heard is mixed method. Yeah, but then you answer one question here. Yeah, mixed method. Yeah, mixed method is actually also answering one questions, but with both qualitative and quantitative method. But what you do here is hybrid econometrics. But I'm not really sure whether this random forest is actually an econometrics model, or is it, when you say AI related thing, then we need to see if it is a mathematic model, then maybe you need to show what is the model, yeah, and how these models actually run the data, so it finally answers your research questions. Yeah, I think all in all, what you did is interesting, and what you just need to do next is just maybe shape here and there and focus some of your discussions, because you have already had nice conclusions and recommendations, but I think there's a missing bridging between what you did actually and what you conclude. Okay, I think that's all from me. Thank you very much, Pak Alfian, for your presentations.
Okay, thank you so much, Miss Anita, for your advice, for your critics and so on for our two presenters here. So there's a lot of notes, yeah, for Mr. Alfian and also Mr. Abdradares, to making sure that the papers, the result of the papers is better, and also give a good impact for, especially for Islamic economics in Indonesia. And thank you so much for this session, Miss Anita, for commenting and also give advice for our presenter. And before we go into the main room to have a closing ceremony, I will give the audience time to give a question for the presenters. So, for the audience, maybe you first or just drop the question to the comment column, please. If you have a question, let me know. And after this question and answer session, we have a documentation session. And also we have to return to the main room to have a closing ceremony. So, any question? Audience, participants? Okay, if you have not a question, maybe I kindly to ask Miss Anita to give a generally advice to our presenter, maybe to give a making sure that the paper that created by the presenters is better than before.
Okay, thank you, Kak Zara. First of all, congratulations, Pak Abrar and Pak Alfian. I think you both have done an amazing job, and you have done your best. I also learned new things from both of you. Please don't take it to, I mean, what I suggest is to improve the, I think if I say the quality of the paper doesn't mean that your paper are not qualified. You just need more things to do to shape your paper, to make it more focused, and to show that your paper have appropriate method from starting from the title, the introductions, and the literature review, the method, which is for most economic journal, method is like not really the most part of the study, but method is what make your research readable, understandable, and logic. Yeah, so please give more attention to how you actually structure your paper and you structure your research. You already did a very good job, and I do really appreciate the quality of both your works. And if you need more of my comment after you revise, please do not hesitate to hit me up.
Okay, thank you, Miss Anita. Yeah, your
Thank you and
feedback is
congratulations.
valid.
Okay, thank you so much, Miss Anita, for your kind advice for the presenters. And ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have a documentation session today. So if you can open your camera, please, we can capture this moment. And I will have a screenshot for this session. Okay. I will count 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much, Ms. Agnita. Thank you so much for the presenters today and also the audience for today. And sorry. Okay. Before we go into the main room, I think I have to say that hopefully all of the effort devoted out to Islamic economics from the paper that was created can be provide many benefits in the future, inshallah. And for the advice, inshallah, can make the paper of the for the paper that presented by the presenter is more better than before. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for the time. Okay. Okay, this is information for the participant before leaving the meeting. Complete the attendance from through the link shared in the chat box. So if you are done to fill the link, you can also apa namanya? Sorry, to return to the main room. Thank you so much. And me as a moderator, Azara Zahira, thank you so much and sorry for any mistake. Last I say wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Miss Anita. Thank you so much, everyone. For the participants, please to return to the main room. You can click the button below. So come back to the main room, please. Thank you.